It is weird. Like I just also have a bad memory, unfortunately. But like, it's just like I look back, I'm like, how the hell did that happen? How did I make whatever decisions I made at 13, 14 years old to randomly like fall into that?
Bro, I'm right there with you. I was selling like on eBay just to buy a monitor that would have like a 2 millisecond response time. Bro, I would never go through the hassle of selling something on eBay, taking photos of it, shipping it. Bro, these are all small things. I'm like, how in the world did I figure that out?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting. I mean, it's like a real passion. That's how you know you really loved. You must have loved it or felt something.
It was an absolute fixation. Yeah. Started getting like a couple views on a video.
Yeah. So that's all in high school, you said, or like, right? So you were. I think I've heard when you were like 15 that your parents forced you to get a job.
Yeah, my mom was worried, and she was right, that I was just like staying in my bedroom all day, didn't really go out, didn't have like a social life. And she was, I think, more annoyed than anything, too, just hearing me talk on Xbox all day because the walls were paper thin. Thanks a lot again, Dad. No basement. My sister's narking on, waking my dad up in the middle of the night when he's got to wake up at 4 a.m. to drive an hour to the work site just because I'm whispering in the mic. So there was just a whole lot going on at home. My mom was kind of sick. She wasn't really acting like herself, but she kicked me out of the bedroom to get a job at McDonald's. I mean, it didn't need to specifically be at McDonald's. She's just like, you got to get a job. So I went to the dean's office, got a worker's permit or whatever you call it, and just applied at the same McDonald's that my friend Alec Falzone, who was like my brother's age, he lived 8 houses down, but he also played Gears of War 1. I would go over to his house and stay up 24 hours playing multiplayer, and he said I'd probably get you a job at McDonald's. So I just chose the easiest path forward, and that's how I ended up working there. I worked there 4 years. I wasn't full time, but damn near was.
Yeah.
So that was, and going back to the original point of my mom, that I actually attribute McDonald's a lot to my ability to talk to people or to even just express myself, because I was pretty socially inept. But you're forced to talk to people at the counter. You learn how to, people are going to respond to the way you deliver a message.
Yeah.
And that helped me come out of my shell. A lot of my managers were like 7, 8 years older than me, in their mid-20s, who I thought were really cool, and they would, always try to get me out of my shell, invite me to places like that.
Did you have any other jobs that you did?
Only McDonald's, 4 years. And then I went straight into, I won KovaaKsXP in 2011.
Yeah.
Which was
right?
MW3.
Oh, okay.
It was kind of like Champs, where they had 32 teams around the world, but it was sort of used as a promotional event for MW3.
Okay.
So the game hadn't been released yet.
Oh, wow.
So they put up a $1 million prize purse, and I ended up on that team just by sheer luck, because the people that were on Optic at the time, JCap wasn't 18, Rambo was Canadian, and they invited me as like a last resort, and we ended up winning the damn thing. So I used that money, got a check for like $93,000, quit my job, and dropped out of college.
Okay.
Streaming on Twitch.
Wow. So yeah, I was gonna. First off, I think it's interesting because again, I always mention myself being 14 when I started doing. I've never had another job, right? So it's like my family. I think I learned both seeing my parents, how much the struggles of trying to make pay the bills and all that. Like I've respected and understood money. I was blessed from learning from my parents. But for a lot of people that never worked before, I think it's always interesting for the people that have. It gives them a different perspective on money, right? When you're working for 8 hours to make a certain amount. But for you, what you highlighted wasn't even that. It was the social skills, which is also very interesting. I think that's why, like, again, I don't regret. I mean, I'm very blessed to have not had to work and had to, only do YouTube since I was 14. Very lucky that I just fell into this and like started making money when I was young. But I kind of envy people that did have different experiences, because it's like, yeah, I've never had an experience like a service job or anything like that. I don't know what it's like. I don't. There are things I definitely miss out on.
Don't do it.
No, I mean, hopefully I won't ever have to, but I think it does make people. It definitely makes you. It molds you into something. Somebody. It helped you grow up, like you just said, socially.
I'm hoping I give my daughter some generational wealth, but I'm gonna make her get a job.
That's what I was gonna ask you, because I mean, I'm sure you don't necessarily want her maybe to work at McDonald's since you saw how it was. Maybe you don't want her to do a service job. Nothing wrong with working at McDonald's, but maybe for you, like, okay, I don't want her to do that, but you want her to work. I don't know, but like, because I'm sure it's like I feel like a lot of people have that kind of struggle where they want to give their child, money,
Yeah.
and comfort, but you also want them to have to earn, learn the values of life. So
You know, it's funny, not to cut you off, but I think I'm gonna let my daughter do whatever she wants. And
Yeah.
if I have a son, I'm definitely making it a good job.
yeah,
I'm hoping Gracie lives with us for the rest of her life, bro.
I feel you.
I hope she turns into a spoiled brat.
I understand that.
Mean to people, out of touch with reality.
I think
But she's nice to dad.
I think like you. I think, son, buddy, you gotta go.
Yeah.
You gotta go work.
I'll have that rolling around in dirt.
Yeah.
But Gracie girl, you do whatever she wants.
Yeah. She's gonna. That's cool. I'm sure you guys are gonna have a beautiful relationship as she gets older.
Yeah, my
It's
son's
exciting.
gonna hate me, dude. God willing.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I guess we'll see. I guess she's just not even one yet. So
Yeah.
we'll give you some time to figure out her working, but it's cool. It's cool your experience. I was gonna ask you what, I'm sure you had some resistance from your parents when you maybe talked about gaming and wanting to be a pro, and I'm sure winning COD XP helped you kind of convince them that, here I can make money doing this.
Yeah. I mean, it was tough for my mom. My mom hated it, to be honest with you.
Really?
And I get it. It's like, I can't ask her now, obviously, but I think she just, there was no track record. There was no
Blueprint.
history that she
Yeah.
could look on the internet for. At that time, none of it existed. So there had to be like a level of conviction or to believe me, but at the same time, it just brought out like bad habits of me just sitting at home, or she thinks I'm wasting my time. That's what I think why she hated it so much, because she hated it.
Okay.
But my dad, he didn't really care. As long as I got good grades, which that's what I always told my mom. I'm like, hey, what do you want me to do? You want me to sit at home, watch TV? I got all my homework done. I get good grades. I got the job. Why do you care? But she was, sick at that time, and it's that part is a whole long story. My dad was always really cool about it. He was very supportive of it. So it was like a tough road to try to go down when I think about it. But now that I'm here, it obviously doesn't really seem like all that much. But yeah, she hated it.
So after you won COD XP, did you start competing just full? Like, you must have gotten put on a pro team at that point?
Yeah,
full
we
time.
weren't. So that's the kind of the catch-22 is that I actually got dropped from the Optic competitive team once or twice, and at those times, just figured I wasn't going to compete anymore, and I was just going to do YouTube full time.
So you already thinking like that at that time?
I was making like Black Ops 1 sniper montages, MW2 sniper montages.
Okay, so you already active on YouTube as well?
Yeah, but I didn't want to leave Optic.
And were you making good money on YouTube at that
No,
time?
no.
Was it even monetized at that time?
It had to be monetized a little bit, but I could go back and look at my channel, but I know I wasn't making much, but it was better than what I would have been making at McDonald's.
Yeah,
maybe like a couple thousand every single month, which at that time seemed like,
Yeah.
it seemed like the world was in my hands. But, my history is kind of rough, but I went back and forth from doing YouTube full time to competing when I would convince people from game to game when a new title would release, like, yo, you got to play with me. Hector's going to let me do Optic Nation or have a second team, even though the Optic Gaming team is like Rambo, Scump, Merc, Big Timer. But then, I think if I remember correctly, I kind of leveraged the fact that me and Scump were doing YouTube together. I was trying to convince him, like, dude, I'm better than Rambo. Just be on my team, and then we could have that. And that's how Black Ops 2 sort of happened.
Wow.
So they dropped Rambo, and then it was me, Scump, Merc, and Big Timer. We won the first event of the year, which was like UMG Chicago in 2000. This is the event where Eggs pushed me in that infamous YouTube video. And so it kind of just worked out in my benefit that I sort of had this like Optic latched onto me, and I'm latched onto Optic. It was like, it was a healthy relationship, but it definitely gave me some like bargaining chips to like try to convince people to play with me instead of whoever was on the team at that time.
Yeah, well, at that point, you said you went back and forth between content and being a pro. At that point, you mastered both, right? You were like the biggest thing in gaming. Not to hype you up too much, but it's true. It's true.
In a small pocket.
No, but
of
you
gaming.
were the superstar of you were signed by Red Bull, right? At that time. So you definitely clearly figured it out. Everyone remembers. Even in other games, like, you always had that respect as a pro, right? Early on, and you were streaming and doing YouTube at that time, right? So that's obviously in the house, right? 60/50 you got on your
Yes, sir.
on your knuckles. That was a huge time. You know, I was just speaking to Hex about that a little bit in the episode I did with Hex, but that was a very interesting time. I guess you were sponsored at Red Bull before that, or when you moved in?
I was sponsored by Red Bull. They coincided on the same timeline. I was sponsored by Red Bull at the house, for sure.
Okay. So I would assume at that time you're making more money off of streaming and YouTube than actual competing.
I mean, we really weren't making a ton of money at that time. I mean, there was no sub button on Twitch, and my Red Bull contract, I was making like $12,500 base salary, and then there was a year, and there was an opportunity to make like another $12,500 in total for 25 grand if I hit certain benchmarks from competing. And at that time, I was really in between if I should sign with Red Bull or G Fuel. I ended up obviously taking Red Bull, work with G Fuel later down the road. But Twitch, we were making good cash. We started to make good cash from Twitch and Black Ops 2. Like all of a sudden, we went from like 500 viewers to 1,000, then it compounded 1,000 to like 3,000. Then all of a sudden, me and Seth, you know, would ping pong off each other, having like 10 to 15K watching. If I got online before him, he would have like 8,000 people watching, I'd have 15. Or if he got on before me, it'd be vice versa. So we were making good money off the ads, but it's not what people are making today.
Yeah.
And YouTube was doing pretty well. But even you guys were making way more money than us on YouTube. You were a tank in your own regard, in your own right. You guys were making cash hand over fist. I remember I would always compare myself to your guys' channels and your analytics. I'm like, dude, this got 30, 40, 50 million views this month. I think the highest I ever peaked at was like 15 million views a month. You guys were making cash hand over. YouTube was the play.
YouTube was what we did. I mean,
it was better than Twitch at that time.
At that time, yeah.
And that's why I never really like Twitch before I went to MLG TV was like a hard conversation to have because Twitch took so much time.
Yeah.
But the output would just be so much better on YouTube.
It's crazy because that is for sure how it was. That's why I never got into streaming. I was making a YouTube video every day. And the money was way better on YouTube. It was way easier. For me, it's easier to make a video than sit on stream for 8 hours.
Yeah.
You know, now you could say, I think streaming now it's swapped. I see the money that...
I agree with that.
Now the money
depending
that
on who you are.
Exactly. If you're that big now, I think you'll make more money on... If you're at that size, I think you'll make more money on Twitch now than you would on YouTube. I mean, YouTube obviously still pays well, but like streaming and ads on Twitch and subs, it's unbelievable.
And for a lot of these guys on Twitch, their YouTube just kind of turns into like automatic paydays where they don't really have to do much if they find the right person. And their YouTube just grows without them thinking about it.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's interesting, but if you didn't do that, though, you didn't stream all those years on Twitch, then who knows if you would probably have double-digit 10,000 plus viewers today still watching you. So
yeah, I wish I never left, but you know, live and learn.
Once again, I mean, it's a testament to what you guys did that early on. I mean, both of you. I was literally sitting at home and I have Twitch open and I see you playing COD with like 10K viewers, and I see Scum playing with like 10K viewers. You guys are both like same thing, and I'm like, it's dope. It's dope. You're still both going, and you still both got people love you guys. People have grown up with you guys, and you guys obviously, you know, different, way different. You're probably way different today than you were in that house, but
exponential.
But right, all the people that watched you back then and grew up now, and they're liking this phase in life that you're in now. But it's cool though. It's cool to see you had. Yeah, Twitch. You again, like it's easy for you to look at our analytics, but at the same time, we can look at you and be like, dude, this guy. Like, exactly to your point, you're streaming every day with tens of thousands of viewers. Then your YouTube videos are just popping off from your stream, right? You're just ripping it in volume.
Yeah.
So it's all different. But you had that. You had the revenue from those, and you were getting a salary. I'm assuming.
No.
Okay.
No, I never had a salary at Optic, but it made sense at that time. Why? Hector would find me like every now and again some brand deals. It's not like I didn't make any money from Optic. Like it's not me crybaby cheesing, and this has like a history with Hector, which kind of led to me leaving the team, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. But the memory is hazy. All I know is that we never really had a salary, but Hector tried his best because we would sit there and we'd try to figure out like how are these other teams making money? Like how are they finding some of these deals? And that was before we had like a good grasp on what esports would turn into, because we were sort of segmented off into this world of Call of Duty. It kind of felt like it was far away from all these other, you know, triple or mainstream titles like League of Legends and StarCraft and Counter-Strike. And so there was no salary from that. I honestly really didn't start making like good money until I signed like that MLG TV contract, and then YouTube. I got to spend more time on that because MLG TV was all sorts. But yeah, the money's obviously a lot better now, but we are doing well compared to what I was doing prior, obviously.
Okay, well, interesting. It's interesting here, and even Red Bull, hearing that they're paying you $12,000 a year is insane.
I mean,
like people expect, Red Bull. They probably think you're getting paid millions. Everyone always exaggerates in the head, but
honestly, I think it kind of helped that people thought that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It kind of adds to like the lure of it.
It does for sure because it looks insane.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Like maybe you didn't realize it at the time, but like even signing for that much was probably way more valuable for you to just be tied to Red Bull. Right?
For sure.
Very interesting. But okay, so when you're in that house though, you're going through all these things. Became a huge streamer. You're a pro. You have been for a couple years doing YouTube. Was Hex, I mean, outside looking in,
yeah,
it seems like Hex was kind of like a father figure to everyone.
Oh, yeah.
What kind of role did he play in those years for you?
Hector honestly helped me just through the small things that he would do for us and the small ways he would reply to people and talk to people. And kind of like, in certain ways, taught me how to be a man. It sounds odd because my dad is one of the strongest, hardest I know.
Yeah.
But we didn't spend a lot of time together, like, I didn't ask my dad how to shave. I obviously didn't ask Hector, but from an analogy perspective, there were just things that I picked up off of Hector and the way he carried himself that made me want to be like him. And my dad, busts his entire life, and when you get home from work, he'd either go work a side job or he'd just be dead from working outside. And he would take us to all of, like, our basketball games, baseball games when I was in elementary school and playing like Little League and all that. And I feel very lucky that I had my dad and still have my dad today helping me like figure out if I need him to or not. But Hector definitely just being around him so often. I mean, he's like 10 years older than me. He had lived a lot of life. Him and I were probably like exact opposites in high school. Just the way that he carried himself. I was always attracted to that because I wanted to be like him. And if he were sitting here, I'd lie to him. But yeah, I always felt very lucky to have spent a lot of time with Hector because he was quick with the joke too. He's always very witty. And I always wanted to be like that since I was so like quiet and reserved growing up.
Yeah, he was just in here. Obviously, I just finished filming with him. I was way out. It's funny to watch you guys interact because I obviously have nothing but respect for both of you, and I've known both of you for so long, but you guys are very close. Obviously, you live together, and like you just described, right? He's kind of like a bigger brother, maybe your father figure he was when you were younger. Yeah. So it's funny to see you guys kind of like talk. Like you said, you wouldn't probably say this right now in front of him if he was in the room.
Nah, I'd have to be talking.
Yeah.
Nah, we got similar sense of humor. Yeah. He'd pick us up, like bring us to the mall before an event, go grab something. He's the reason why I bought my first nice watch. Spent like $2,500 on a Tissot like skeleton in the mall. And I would honestly, actually, that's one part that I wish I did not get from Hector is that he always had the mentality like money's gonna come and go, so like you might as well enjoy it. Yeah. And I used to be really cheap, and I'd be scared to spend any amount of money because I worked at McDonald's, bro. Like you're making minimum wage, you're making like $7.30. I would never spend or do anything that would ever put my money in jeopardy. But I got a little looser with it because of Hector.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is nice. But I try to return that watch. He's like, no, but don't do that. So yeah, Hector was just always around, and that was actually when I look back on it, probably my favorite parts of being on Optic.
I can imagine, honestly.
Yeah, he's just like,
he's a good dude.
He's like one of the guys. Like you just want to be around. He's funny. He'll tell you like it is.
And he's looking out for your guys' best interest. So the first episode I recorded of this show was with Rain, and we spoke about, we had a similar experience in the New York house, living together, and we were 18, trying to figure it out. But me and him, I guess we're similar to you and Scump, right? If I can make the comparison. Like, we were the two biggest on YouTube at the time.
Yeah.
And we kind of beefed behind the scenes. Not really publicly, but we had some falling out a little bit at the beginning. We kind of were really jealous of each other. We were very competitive together.
Yeah, and that's a good thing, though. Like, hindsight.
Yes. So we speak about it like that, right? We speak about how, like, it made us better, and once we both clicked where it's like, we don't need to compete and want the other one to fail, but it should encourage us to do better, but not, we used to be mad when the other person's video would perform so well, for example. It was bad competition. But there's been
Us too.
yeah,
Very toxic.
So I've heard, right? You guys have kind of spoke about it, but you and Scump. But is it true that you guys like how bad was it between you two?
I mean, it got bad at certain times. I mean, there's certain things that don't need to be said that you could just feel, especially when you're working side by side with each other. But
You guys were sitting next to each other, right?
sit next to each other. I mean, listen, man. I always wanted to be the guy, just because I'm not a psychologist, but I think, and I certainly do believe this that I'm about to say. I don't think I'm a narcissist, but I definitely like attention in certain capacities, and I didn't necessarily understand that about myself when I was younger. Now that I'm older, and a lot of things that I cared about then, I don't care about as much now. Actually, little to no things. But Scump was always, I knew he was better than me in Call of Duty. And to be honest with you, I always thought Scump was funnier than me. But the only thing that I had that Seth didn't was that my viewership would be better than his on certain days or most days. And I think he had a couple pieces of things that I wanted to be or wish I was like. And I had something that he didn't have yet. And, you know, obviously as time would tell, that is not true anymore. But we just wanted to be the one with the most viewers. And I think that was like natural at that moment in that era, because if the difference between having like 12,000 viewers versus like 6,000 viewers from an ad revenue perspective on Twitch was a massive change, bro. Before Twitch was really making creators the money they are today. So I think we just both wanted to be the #1 guy, and that would get toxic for sure. Like we'd be playing in a pub lobby together, trying to record for YouTube. And it's not every game I mean, for Seth it was. Any game that he stepped into, he could probably upload it at that time for what the bar was and the measurement of what made a good gameplay. And it would just come so easy to him. And there was I think it was on Raid, where I got a swarm kill streak, which was like I think the biggest at the time on that game, but Seth didn't die that game. Or he got multiple swarms, but I didn't die. And he wanted to upload the video, but I wanted to upload the video. And it was things like that, small things like that would just chip away at each other, that would make us just hate each other.
It's hilarious because Hex mentioned the exact same story.
Yeah.
When I asked him about from his perspective as like the leader of the house, whatever, right? Trying to like, because I'm sure he had to like help step in some situations, guide you guys.
Well, the thing was like, I don't pride myself on it, but I'm hyper aware. I'm self-aware of the things that I say and how people will react to it. And I don't like to have people mad at me. And I definitely know at that time, it's not like we ever took business classes, but I had to stay on Seth's good side for sure, because I knew how good he was. Yeah. And being on his team would be a big deal for me in my career. Yeah. So there would be times where I'm like, there's no way that I'm in the wrong here, but I would have to sort of like walk on eggshells because I didn't want to piss him off. But there's probably just boiling points where I couldn't take it anymore. I'm like, dude, you are delusional. And I'm sure I was delusional at the time too. I mean, I'm fine admitting that now, but to be honest with you, if I had to go back, I'm like, I don't know if I'm really in the wrong here. Yeah. But Seth, he was just the best at everything. So I kind of had to play the game a little bit to make sure he didn't hate me, because if he hated me, I'm off that team.
Really? Wow, that's very interesting.
He punched the door,
how you feel. He punched the door?
Yeah. He punched like a wooden door into the master bedroom because he was so mad at me, and he put a hole in it. Wow. A wooden door, not like that's like plywood in the middle, or plywood wood. You'd think I know. My dad's a carpenter. It was thick, and he put a hole. Dude, because Seth was yoked at the time. Yeah, that guy could lift weights for like a month, and it looked like he was on T.
I'm thinking back to our house. I mean, Banks punched. You expect this, right? Banks punched holes in the wall. Banks headbutted holes in walls.
Let's go, Ricky.
I've seen him headbutt a hole in the wall. I went to the hole, and there was like the fattest, what's it called? The stud in the middle, like an inch away from where his head was.
Oh my God.
So he barely missed it, but
he'd been Antonio Brown out here.
Yeah. Maybe
no disrespect.
Yeah, maybe. But hearing Scum punch a hole is different. I mean, you lived with the guy, so I always know it's different. But you know, I've never seen the rage side of him online. So
he's not that different than what he is on camera. He's really not. It was just like a different.
We're all humans. Like,
yeah, bro.
But it's funny. It's also again like it's just interesting for me to hear because again we lived like parallel universes, right, in just different ways. So
we really did.
Yeah. It's very interesting. So that's interesting that you say also the way that you're looking at it, of like you didn't want to piss him off. So you felt like he had hex. Was it like you think he had hex on his?
No, I mean, to be fair, I still like we were both Hector's guy, but
Yeah.
Hector's big on loyalty, and I had been around since like day one, and so even when Seth left Optic to join Envy in Ghost after UMG Philly, Hector left the decision up to me of whether we would let Scum join back again.
Okay. So I don't have the best memory. I was gonna ask you.
Yeah.
So you were still on the team when he left.
Yeah,
Was that because of your guys' beef?
I think it was a combination of Seth didn't like living in the house anymore. There was a lot of contention between us on certain like weeks, certain months, and I don't think we were playing that well. And so he decided, without really talking to any of us on the team, that he was going to leave. So he drove all the way back from Philly, I think it was, to the house in Chicago, grabbed all of his stuff before our flight landed, and left.
Oh, so he didn't see you guys.
He didn't see any of us. And I texted him like, yo, I know that we've got a lot of problems, but I always consider, like, we're friends at the end of the day. I mean, this is just business and like that. And he texted me a very infamous quote where he said, the only thing he said to me after not replying for hours, and the only message I ever got from him after this was, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. On some, like, sick twist.
You guys definitely meme that now, right?
Straight out of the movie. We don't do it enough.
That if I was you, I would never I would drop that line on him every time I talk to him. That is hilarious.
What's even crazier is that we picked up this kid named Dito for the tournament the next day.
Dito was on phase for a little too, yeah.
And then we beat him.
No,
and we outplaced him
he
in that
played
tournament.
with Envy. I didn't know he actually played with Envy.
For like an online tournament.
Okay.
That weekend.
Because I know he came back like a week later.
Yeah, he wanted to join the team back, and we were sitting in the laundry room or something. I think we were talking away from all the players, me and Hector. He's like, it's up to you. And I knew at that time, like I always knew, we're better off with Seth on the team than not. I mean, that's how good he was. So I'm like,
I mean, he was probably what?
Because I really did like Seth. Bro, I thought Seth was hilarious. I liked being around Seth.
Yeah.
Every friend or family member, there's certain things you don't like about them.
Yeah.
And vice versa. But at the end of the day, like, you got, like, a love for him.
Yeah, yeah.
And I knew he was better off competitively on our team than not.
That's hilarious. He's probably, what, like 18, 19? Not even. No. He must have been at least 18, right?
It was 2013, 2012, or 2013, 2014. How old am I? It's 2024, 11. I was like 20, 21. He was, probably like 17, 18 or something.
So it's like, dude,
we're so young.
It sounds like such a rash decision, but it's like when you're that big, you have that much attention, you got making decisions like that. I've heard him mention it too, that like he was like Castro like pulled him to the side at an event and like he was like venting to him, and it's he's 17 years old. It's an interesting period of life. It's funny that he made that decision, came back a week later. Cause that's a big to go to the house, take the stuff,
send you that
quote.
Bro. He was like, oh no, what did I do?
That quote, that text is hilarious, dude.
Yeah.
That's actually I don't think I've ever heard that before, but I can't believe I don't hear that more.
Yeah.
I would hold that. I would repeat that every time I talk. That is hilarious, dude.
Damn.
You should put that on a T-shirt.
I should do it.
With his face.
I should do it.
Oh man. Okay, so I was gonna ask you if there was a point where you guys kind of were like, one of you was like, it's either me or him, but seems like not really. But maybe that was the closest they got to it.
That was definitely the closest it got to it. But after that, it was like water under the bridge. And
then what about you leaving Optic? Right? You obviously left Optic.
Yeah.
Famously again. And again, sorry for my poor memory. I don't know if you were competing still, or if you left when you were just a creator, or like what was it like leaving Optic and that decision?
Yeah, so it was after COD Champs AW. We won 3 events that year. COD Champs was the one we were supposed to win, and we got 7th, 8th place. And I kind of knew in my head that there was no way, at least from my perception of it, that I could stay on the team competing after we lost COD Champs. Like, I felt like Crimp hated me. They were probably feeling the pressure that they thought they could do better with somebody else. And at that time, after winning 3 events and Optic being at the biggest it's ever been, this wasn't like a new feeling for me. And YouTube was going so well for me at the time. And I was talking to my ex at that period where I'm like, dude, I don't need this stress. I could go make more money. I could go just do YouTube full time. And me quitting competitive didn't really have to do with eventually leaving Optic. It was more so I just didn't want the responsibility and the stress of trying to keep this team together and constantly being the scapegoat for if we would lose. Why I'm the reason why we lost.
Yeah.
And I really hated the way that losing would make me feel and the way that it would make me react. Because, like you said, with Norden, you're probably very competitive.
Yeah.
I think a lot of men are competitive by nature, but I really struggled with losing because I never got to feel what it would be like to lose if I wasn't on the biggest team that had the most pressure. And it's a blessing and a curse. You know, like my life is the reason it is today because of those years I spent on Optic.
Yeah.
But I always am curious to see what it would have been like to be a pro player away from that, aside from like the success and my life as it is today, just how I would have been feeling about competing if there wasn't that much pressure to win every single tournament that we played.
Yeah.
I decided to leave the team. I never officially retired. I just said I'm taking a break. They're going to sign somebody. They ended up bringing in, I think, Enable for a couple events, but it was going to be Karma, yada, yada, yada. The rest is history, Dynasty.
Yeah.
But then I was going to LA every couple weeks to see my ex-girlfriend at the time. And, you know, when you're young in a relationship like that, there's not really many things that are going to stop you from pursuing it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'm going to leave I'm going to leave the content house. I'm going to move to LA. Can't believe I did that to this day. And YouTube kept going pretty well for me. And I was in that relationship for a long time. But there was just a lot of, which, you know, if you watch my stream now, you know how hard I tweak about everything, whether it's the settings in game, our team playing while I'm doing a watch party. I'm just an overthinker by nature. And my biggest problem with Optic at that time was that, going back to the thing that we had no salaries and Hector would bring us money as he could, but Hector was always in a really tough position and I could feel the stress. He didn't show it often, but I could feel the stress of him having to make decisions on whether and how to divvy up money that comes in. Because, you know, you got to make decisions for not only all the players, then he has his family, he has his own career, and then he has the team. There's just a lot of things I think that circulated through his brain, and he might tell the story differently or not, but that's the way that I felt. And I just felt like if I were doing my own thing and didn't have to worry about the rules of engagement that happen while being on a team that I'm not getting paid to be on, I can't waste. I just quit competitive, which is everything that I've ever known.
Yeah.
And that was what allowed me to have this YouTube career. Brand deals start popping up. I have to say no to certain opportunities. You know, at the time, Hector had told me about some ownership in the company. And with now how I understand it today, I think he was telling the truth.
Yeah.
But just legally and how you file everything from like a corporation perspective and taxes and timing, I started to sort of see doubt in whether he was actually looking out for my best interests or not. Because he had all of these things to worry about. I've got myself to worry about now. I need to make as much money as possible. It's only been a couple years since I dropped out of college. I don't know if this is forever. You know, every day I wake up, upload to YouTube. I'm like, this might be the day where nobody clicks on the video, which I'm sure you felt a million times in your life. So at that point, after having conversations with, you know, my ex at the time, and her sister was really big on YouTube, the idea sort of stemmed in my head, well, what if I just did this solo? And it was, honestly, now that I think about it, the hardest part wasn't leaving Optic. It was sort of like losing conviction in my relationship with Hector, because at that point I thought he was like, and still is now obviously, one of my best friends, and I genuinely like care about him and his family. You know, I have a lot of like he's like a brother.
Yeah.
But you know, you're young and you got all these ideas swirling around in your head, and I decided that it would be better for me if I could go try to capitalize on this thing that I was doing by myself and not worry about all this yellow tape, which hindsight now to me was one of the best and worst decisions I've ever made in my life. After that happened, me and Hector didn't speak for a while. I think I told this story on stream or a podcast a couple months back, but I didn't care about the gap between me and Optic. I just, like, you know how Hector was telling a story about somebody of like, I'm just not going to talk to him anymore?
Yeah.
I went up to him where there was like a party in LA, and he was there, and I went up to talk to the circle that he was in, and never felt more uncomfortable in my life, which is insane to feel knowing what my relationship was like with Hector.
Yeah.
And he just looked at me, nodded, and didn't say a word to me. And so that sat with me for a long time, for months. And I think I was like drinking one night and I got on my computer and wrote like an entire like email message, like poured everything out that I had been thinking about to him and apologized for the way that I handled certain things and just try to repair the relationship. And so I don't remember the exact timeline now, but it took some time for me and Hector to even start talking again.
Yep.
And even after that, I think it took even more years for us to sort of feel like where I'm at now. Like I texted Hector last night. I don't know why. I was feeling like sentimental, but there's just a couple things that him and I have talked about in the last couple months, personal things that he shared with me, whether it's around family, business. And I told him, without sounding corny or dramatic, I'm like, you know, I just really appreciate you sharing those things with me. It kind of feels like the old days and stuff like that. And even when I first was coming out here to visit and record videos, you could tell like there was this, not uneasiness, but since I am, and I've always been like socially awkward, I'm always trying to read people and don't know how to act in certain situations, I could just feel like something was just a little off. Like we're talking and joking around and acting like we're back in the old days, but I think now as enough time has passed, we're like basically back where we used to be.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it still sucks because 100 Thieves and Optic are separate.
Yeah.
So not everything can be, you know, exactly the way that it was before.
Yeah.
But from a personal standpoint, you know, I think our relationship is as strong as it was back when I was on the team.
It's great to hear because I've heard you over the years like talk about how much you hate the LA vlog era that you did, right? Like that content. And just,
yeah.
And like you're saying, like walking, like those relationships, because that's one of the things that's bothered me the most with FaZe as well. With like the fall off of FaZe is like, hopefully the rebound is happening now, right? But let's just when that drop happened for like 2 years, one of the worst parts was like you said, like some members like Tico, like I'll just say, I mean, me and Tico have a great relationship now, but like there was like friction that we never had, and it was like it wasn't because of each other, but it was because of things that were happening, and it's like, you know, like I'm the one that's communicating with him, and that stuff bothered me way more than like you said, the disconnect from like even FaZe or like wanting the business to do better. Like the things that really bothered me was when I had problems with someone that was really close, like Tico or other FaZe members. So again, that I can relate on that. Like I'm so happy that I have a great relationship with him again, and I'm sure you are. You know, you obviously moved here recently, right?
Yeah.
Finally got out of LA. Congratulations.
Yeah, man. I was just tied to it for so long after started 100 Thieves. Like, there's just no way, because I was in the office like 3, 4, 5 days a week.
I'm sure.
So going back to what you said real quick.
Yeah.
Man, for anybody, I think that was a part of FaZe or Optic or 100 Thieves or any other team, anything in gaming, really, I just think the industry was still so young and is still so young to this day. We were like the first generation of people that had to deal with learning how difficult friendships and business can actually be.
Yeah.
And I don't think that there is a roadmap or a blueprint that anybody was able to make decisions based off of what has happened in the past and used prior situations as inspiration on how to navigate certain things. And I definitely don't think that that should excuse decisions that certain people have made or things that have happened. But everybody was so young trying to figure out their life, figure out what they're supposed to be doing, how they're supposed to be handling, and figuring out and trying to make decisions for so many people who are affected by those things. I'm glad to hear that you and Tico, because I love Tico.
Yeah,
you know, I obviously don't know him nearly as well as you do, but every time when I would go to the FaZe house, I loved hanging out with him.
He's the nicest dude.
So I'm just glad people like us in situations like this can still just kind of like the past be past and just know that everybody was in a tough situation.
Yeah, it was. I know. That's why, like, I try not to make myself look like a victim, or especially when I'm talking to someone like him. I'm like, dude, I completely understand how you feel about, you know, FaZe. A lot of the FaZe members, I tell them, I understand how you feel about not getting certain things the way it should, but it's like, dude, from my perspective, I was trying to do everything that I could for you guys, but it's like, and for what I thought was the right thing to do too. It's not just for them. I actually thought it was the right thing to do too, but it's like, I'm hitting a brick wall at the top with the board or whatever, and it's like,
Yeah.
on top of all that too, it all being public and having hundreds of thousands of people's comments and views and everyone watching it, it's rough. And again, there's way worse situations. Not acting like I'm like,
Well,
feel
here's the
bad
thing.
for us. Like, what did you say, crybaby cheese? Is that what you
Crybaby
said?
cheese, yeah.
I'm not trying to do that, but it's like, it is also something that, like, again, only few people will really understand it, and you're one of the few people that can really understand what I'm saying. And it's just like, that's why I just swallow it. I was like, whatever. Like, I know deep down that I tried to do my best throughout this whole time with all my friends. I did not try to do. I made sure I could do my best with everyone. I didn't intentionally do wrong by anyone. It's like whatever came from it. You know, that's the thing. People. Also, I think as time goes by, we all kind of rekindle naturally those relationships. Because again, you live with someone, you live with Scump and Hex, and it's like, dude, they have a piece of you. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to not have that relationship.
Everything that you just described is exactly how I feel about certain situations that I've been in. Like, even hearing you say and apologize for, I'm not trying to sound like a victim. The problem is when you deliver messages based off of situations that have happened in front of large audiences, they don't realize that decisions as they happen and what comes after look and seem binary. Like, it's zeros and ones. It's either yes or no. This happened or this didn't happen. But they don't understand, and quite frankly, there's no way for them to know whether that's for good or bad, whether the person that they're watching or trying to interpret was doing everything they could or the best that they could to do right by the people that they were working with. And I don't even want to kick up dirt because I'm not a part of any drama right now, but, you know, one day I would like to tell the whole story around, like, Nick Merckx and everything, because I'm not a victim of that situation. I agree with some things that Nick said. I disagree with others that he said, but nobody will ever know what I was doing behind closed doors to try to make everything work and allowing the other people to make decisions on it. And a lot of it I had to just sit there and take. When that's a whole nother thing. That's another part that I don't ever talk about, just because, you know,
I don't even want to ask about it, but like, I don't know the details of it, of course, either, but I can just imagine.
Yeah.
Like, I know that's exactly how I felt. And again, this is what's funny, but like, I just know this is how I know. The more you talk this, I'm gonna feel. But like, it's just like, dude, I would be shocked when like a FaZe member would say something to me, and I'm like, dude, like, I wouldn't even tell. Like, I'd just be like, dude, if only you knew what I'm saying about you and what I'm trying to do, and like, you think that I'm trying to screw you over. I'm just like, dude, it's just the worst spot to be in. When I say the worst spot, I understand. It's still all blessing, whatever. But in this industry, I'm saying, being like, you know, the face and the founder, you look like you have decisions, and you're trying to make everyone have it. It's not fun to be there in the middle at all. And I don't envy anybody that is in a position like that. And you know, I'm happy that that's not necessarily what I have to do anymore. For so many years at FaZe, that was my everyday. It was just like, I wake up and I'm like, you know, here we go. I look at my phone, what's gonna happen today? It's either a FaZe member texting me, pissed off, a paragraph this much, F this, F that, I'm over this. Or it's in the, you know, a corporate, you know, someone on the corporate team saying, we have a problem with this FaZe member and this and this and that. It's just like every day it was just, the world's ending, the world's ending, the world's ending. It's just like Tfue lawsuit, right? Or just Save the Kids comes out, and it's like, dude, you just like, it just never stops. And like, you just being there in the middle of that, it's just crazy, man. And again, like, you can understand, right? As you who has been the face of 100 Thieves, and you know, obviously you left Optic, and that's what you eventually started, which we didn't really. Obviously, we're gonna get to it, right? But I guess it's a perfectly natural time to do it, right? So you ended up starting 100 Thieves.
Mm-hmm.
That's after what, like 2-3 years in LA?
Yeah, 2015 to like 2017.
Okay, let's say you stopped. You're making full-time content still.
Yeah.
Up until 2015.
Up till like the end of 2017.
Which is around when I stopped, also, actually.
Yeah, right when 100 Thieves like officially started, and all of a sudden, my business partner at the time is like, we're gonna be in the office every day.
Yeah.
And it's funny when I say that, because I'm like the CEO.
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm doing, and he does, so I'm just gonna listen to this guy. And then I'm like, dude, I can't do YouTube and this at the same time. And quite frankly, was burnt out, which is why 100 Thieves started in the first place. So
it's so funny to me. It's the exact same story with me. I was over YouTube too. I'm not gonna lie. Like, didn't want to make videos anymore.
Yeah. And
at that time, our quote unquote CEO got outed for funneling money to his family members and all this stuff, and the guy got kicked out, and we had our other CEO come in who was also no longer there, but